If I'm capturing portraits, I always use a full frame camera. A camera with a full frame sensor will give me a blurrier background compared to a camera with an APS-C size sensor when the images have the same framing, even when using the same aperture. I will show you some real-world examples to illustrate the benefits of using a full-frame camera for portraits. First of all, just a reminder that an APS-C sensor camera is just a crop of a full-frame camera. That's why we sometimes call it a crop sensor camera. In this example, the photos have been captured from exactly the same place. The full-frame sensor is on the left and the APS-C sensor is on the right. They may look different, but the APS-C sensor is literally just a crop of the full frame. If I enlarge the full frame image to the same size as the APS-C sensor image and then crop the image so the two images are the same dimensions, you can clearly see that the images are the same. An APS-C image is just a crop of a full frame image. The difference is that with an APS-C sensor camera, I have to move further away from my subject to get the same framing as the full frame image. The further I am away from my subject, the less blurry the background will be. Because I am using the same lens with the same aperture, it isn't the size of the sensor that makes the background blurry, it is the distance I am away from the subject. To get the same framing, I had to move further away from the subject to capture the image on the right. When we enlarge the images to take a closer look at the background, we can see that the full frame image has a blurrier background than the APS-C image. This makes sense because the closer you are to your subject, the blurrier the background will be. That is the case whether you're using an APS-C sensor camera or a full frame camera. Let's take a look at some real world examples. To work quickly while photographing people, I use two cameras, both with an 85mm f1.4 lens on them. I wanted to use cameras that had similar megapixels, and that is why I chose the Nikon DF with its 16.2 megapixel sensor for my full frame camera, and the Nikon D500 with its 20.9 megapixel sensor for my APS-C sensor camera. It isn't always easy to get exact accurate framing when using two cameras and moving back with an APS-C camera, but I did my best to get the size of the subject the same in both images. When we take a close look, you can see that the front of the headscarf is sharp in the APS-C image, while the full frame camera is blurrier. This image also illustrates that as I get further away from the subject, the background objects appear larger. Notice that the background square behind the subject looks bigger in the APS-C image. When we zoom into the subject, you will also notice that the beads on his shirt are more defined when captured with an APS-C camera. In this example, once again, background objects appear larger with the APS-C sensor because I'm further away from my subject. You will also notice that the tiled pathway that the subject is standing on looks more compressed with the APS-C image because I'm further away. And again, the objects that are in the background are blurrier with the full frame sensor. In this example, you can see that the subject's shirt is blurrier when using the camera with the full frame sensor when compared to the camera with the APS-C size sensor. A closer look clearly shows just how blurry his shirt is, even below his chin when comparing the two images. Let's take a look at a portrait with a black and white pattern on a wall behind the subject. You can see on the left side of the frame, the pattern is blurrier with the full frame camera. Also, on the right side of the frame, the black and white patterns are not visible with the full frame sensor, but when captured from further away with a crop sensor camera, you can see some of the patterns. If you want to learn more about the misunderstanding about APS-C or crop sensor cameras and full frame cameras and lenses, check out my video. It explains why multiplying the focal length gives you an equivalent focal length and an equivalent aperture, but the image will look different. So it really comes down to the fact that the closer I am to my subject, the blurrier the background will be. And to get the same framing, with my full frame camera, I'm going to be closer, so I'll have a blurrier background than when I need to back up with my APS-C sensor camera. If you have any thoughts or ideas, please share them in the comments below. If you like the content I'm creating, please consider subscribing. Thanks so much.